Story time about how my Bumble date tried to choke me. This man was trying to kill me. Disclaimers, know my story time was sending me on Instagram. After the first date, I decided to give it another chance. I ended up going on a date with a guy who I'm pretty sure was gay. The whole time we talked about his best friend and how great his best friend was, and he definitely sounded different. So by the end of the date, I asked him if he was bi. He acted all offended and said no. So obviously, I never went on a date with him again. When I got home that night, I decided to get back on the app and look for another date, as you do. And that's when I saw the guy, the one who choked me. Let me start by saying he was definitely the most attractive guy I had seen on the app until that point, which was one of the reasons why I really wanted to go on a date with this guy. Up until that point, all these other guys were like 5s. He was definitely a 10. We connected right away and he asked me out on a date that very weekend. And I said yes. I was so excited to actually meet this one specific guy because he was so attractive. I went all out and went to get waxed. I got my hair done. The weekend comes around and we end up meeting at a bar. We met, sparks flew, it was amazing. But after 3 drinks, he started getting very aggressive. He started grabbing my butt and everything else. If you know what I mean. Part is story time about how my Bumble date tried to choke me. I mean, he was literally trying to kill me. Disclaimers, not my story time. I was sitting on Instagram. This was by far the worst date I've ever been on. Let me just say, I've had really bad dates. A little backstory. It all started last year when I left my broke-ass boyfriend. He would expect me to pay for everything because I was earning more money than him. So literally from one day to the next, I kicked him out of my apartment and I had all this newfound freedom. Now here's the thing. My friends all use dating apps and they never had such bad experiences, so I figured I should try it out too. To tell you that one of my best friends got married to one of her Bumble dates, I had high hopes. I downloaded Bumble the day after I broke up with my boyfriend. It was probably too soon, but honestly, I was just trying to have fun. My first date was okay. I wasn't necessarily attracted to this guy, but he was very successful and very funny. And when a guy can make me laugh, that goes a long way. So it kind of tricked me into believing that he was like, okay. So I decided to go on another date with him. Only the second time, all he kept talking about was Trump. So I got up from the table and I left him there. I mean, that's one thing about me. If I don't like you, I will straight up leave the table. I mean, I'm not wasting my precious time on some guy. Part 2 is story time about how my Bumble date ended up choking me. That's when he started getting sexually aggressive. Like really bad. He had only had his 3rd drink, which led me to believe that he probably had a couple of other drinks before he came to our date. He was trying to grab at everything. My butt and even my V. Of course I pushed his hands away, and the only reason I didn't leave is because I'm like, okay, he's had a couple of drinks and he's probably just attracted to me, instead of telling him to stop and straight up leaving the bar. After 45 minutes, I told him that I was gonna go home. Then he says, I need a ride home. Can you give me one? And I said yes. Big mistake. We get into my car and he actually started gagging, like he was gonna be sick. I asked him to get out of my car and he said, no, I'm good. And that's when he just leans over and starts trying to kiss me. Instead of a normal kiss, he got up on the chair and on top of me. And I told him to stop, he grabbed my neck. 30 seconds later, I woke up. So yeah, he had choked me. He looked terrified. He got off of me and just left the car. I went straight to the police and they told me that they couldn't actually charge him because I didn't even know his real name. It turns out on the app he had used a fake ID. I reported him to the app, but nothing happened. What should I do? Story time about how my husband's trying to convince me to become an escort. Disclaimers, now my story time is sending me on Instagram. My husband and I have been married for almost 6 years. We did get separated for 2 years, so technically we've been together for around 4 years. We had separated during COVID mainly because he doesn't want to have kids and I desperately want to have children. And yes, when we got married, we did talk about having kids and he said he wasn't sure. But after we got married, he basically told me that he did not want to have kids, which is obviously something that I did not sign up for when I married him. I began to resent him a lot because I could have been with somebody else, someone who wanted to have kids. But instead I spent years with him only to find out that he did not want to have kids. I ended up asking him for a break, and that was basically during COVID. So we were basically broken up for all of 2020. This is where I'm assuming he started getting his ideas. We finally got back together in 2021. I had gone on a couple of dates with some really terrible guys, and I basically thought to myself, well, you know, my husband's not like that, so I guess I should get back with him. As soon as we moved in together, he started talking about escorts. He told me one of his friends uses an escort service, and he thought it might be a good idea to start one. Part 2 is up. Story time about how my husband's trying to convince me to become an escort. Disclaimers, now my story time is sending me on Instagram. After he told me he was thinking about starting his own escort agency, I completely lost it. First off, I didn't want my husband to be involved in that. And secondly, I just think it would bring so many problems. He told me that we should just think about it. And I asked him to show me numbers. You know, how much do people make? And he didn't know anything about it. He had done zero research. After that, we didn't speak about it for a few weeks. Not until he asked me what I thought about being an escort. At first, I was confused, like me being an escort or what I thought about escorts being escorts. I told him escorts can do anything they want as long as they're safe and happy. Then he said, well, we should look into you becoming an escort. I started to laugh and he's like, no, I'm serious. And that's when it hit me. This whole time he was trying to convince me to become an escort. His own wife? What does that say about us? What does that say about the relationship and how he feels about me? So I turned it around and told him that he should become an escort. Then he said, I'm not as good looking as you, so I wouldn't make enough money. That's when he confessed that he had signed me up to 2 different escort websites. And he had conversations with guys pretending to be me. Part 3 is up. Story time about how my husband's trying to get me to become an escort. That's when he confessed that he had already signed me up to several escort websites and that he had been having conversations with different men pretending to be me. Then he pulls out his phone and shows me all the conversations. Most of the men were trying to make me their sugar babies and were offering me upwards of $5,000 a month just to go on dates with him. The look in my husband's face was of excitement and happiness. I was mortified. I couldn't believe that my husband was even entertaining the idea. After he finishes showing me all of the messages between him and these other men, he tells me that we could be earning about $22,000 a month, and all I'd have to do is just go on dates with these guys. I started to cry and he told me that I was overreacting, and that most women would kill to be in my place. I told him these men would expect much more than just going on dates, and he swears up and down that they won't. Now the thing is, we have had money troubles, so I see where he's coming from, but I just don't know. He's still trying to convince me, and he shows me messages from these guys every single day. Most of these men are in their 50s, and one of these guys was actually really attractive. The money sounds so good, but I don't know what to do. I feel like I would resent my husband eventually. I mean, what if I fall in love with one of them? What should I do?
Am I the asshole for refusing to let a female student use the bathroom? Okay, so boom. I know this title makes me look like a major asshole, but hear me out. I, male 46, work at a high school as a PE teacher, and recently I noticed that a student of mine, let's call her A, stopped participating in class. Her excuse would always be the same. Mr. Smith, that's me. I'm on my period. Can I please go to the bathroom? This carried on every PE lesson for 1 month when our unit was dancing and I had to give each student a mark. At this point, A was concerningly behind everyone in our unit and I had nothing to grade her on. I was getting increasingly annoyed, and up until this point, I had never told her no. And when she goes to the bathroom, she comes back after 45 minutes. So once again, she asked if she could use the bathroom because she was on her period, and I just snapped. If you're on your period this often multiple times in 2 months, then I honestly think you need help. Am I the asshole for refusing to let a female student use the bathroom? Part 2. Okay, so boom, like I said, if you're on your period this often multiple times in 2 months, then I honestly think you need medical help. I have to grade you. Come up and participate. Later that day, at around 17 o'clock, I was placed on temporary leave because of the complaints I got from A's parents, and A had also gotten her friends and their parents to complain. I was being called sexist and multiple other names by the student parents, and I was honestly so confused. And multiple of the students' parents threatened the principal to turn to social media or even enroll the girls in another school because of me, because they felt unsafe with a sexist teacher. Once again, I'm a male, 46. Am I the asshole? And what should be the next action to regain the parents' respect?
One day, I got my period during school, so I had to go to the bathroom during class. I make it to the bathroom, and then I see this girl that I've never seen before. She was just looking at herself in the mirror, and I've never seen her. She looked really pale and like a ghost bitch, basically. That's it. And at first I was like, okay, whatever, like maybe she just, needs some sun. But then I decided, why don't I go say hi to her? Like maybe we can be friends. And then I tap her on the shoulder and I'm like, hi. Next thing I know, after I said hi to this random girl I've never seen, I'm on the floor with the school nurse. And then I get up and I was like, what happened? And then the school nurse tells me that I fainted. The school nurse then proceeds to ask me, like, what happened? Why did you faint? Like, were you feeling weird? Is that why you went to the bathroom? And I told her, no, like, I came to the bathroom because I got my period, but I said hi to this random girl, and that's all I remember. And we decided to take it further to my principal because they were like, what if this girl, like, punched her or something? Long story short, we found out that this girl that I saw does not go to the school. She doesn't exist. We looked through all the yearbooks. No one looked like the girl that I saw. So my principal ended up telling me, I think you need a break, you need to disconnect, you need to go on vacation because you're going crazy. Basically, it does not end here. So I was looking for something that would make me relax or whatever, and then I found Breakaway Beach. This is the best part. It's basically one of the largest travel student companies in North America. They're taking thousands of travelers annually across the world. Their goal is to provide an amazing senior trip for seniors. So if you're graduating high school next year, class of 2022, I recommend Breakaway Beach. It saved my life. So let's... One day, I went to Walmart with my mom. While my mom and I were shopping around Walmart, we realized that there was this lady following us all over the store. Any aisle we would be at, she would be behind us. We're gonna call the lady that was following us Vicky. Motherfucking Vicky. So eventually Vicky stopped following my mom and I, and she approached us and she was like, hey, I'm an agent for big agencies and I can make your daughter a star. Long story short, Vicky ended up inviting my mom and I to this event that would make me famous. And she asked my mom if we could go. My mom felt really sketchy sketch about it, so she was like, hey, no, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to pass on this. So Vicky ended up walking away. She was very mad, and she started crying when my mom said no. So after saying no to Vicky, she ended up following us again, but this time she had a knife with her while she was following us. Fuck. So my mom and I decided to tell the security to walk us out to our car because of this Vicky girl, and she had a knife in her hand, and so we made it to the car safe, and then when we got home, guess who we see? Vicky was in my front yard, but it does not end there. This is the best part. She was outside of my house holding my cat. I don't know how she even got my address because she got there before my mom and I did. My cat was inside. I don't know how she got her. So this Vicky bitch was holding my cat, and we saw her, and I was like, dude, let her go. I started crying because I love my cat. And eventually my cat just ended up shitting on her. It was amazing. It was amazing. And then Vicky starts crying because my cat shits on her. Like, you literally broke into my house and you're...
Can you solve this mystery? This is the story of 8 college students who went on a mountain climbing trip that went terribly wrong. One of them went insane and the other one went missing. But what really happened here, and what are the rest of them hiding? All the clues are hidden in what I'm about to say. So these 8 college students decided to climb the tallest mountain in their area, but the weather took an unexpected turn for the worse and they ended up stranded there for 2 weeks, unable to come back down. After 2 weeks, a rescue team found them, but there were only 7 of them left. The 8th climber was missing, and the 7th climber had gone completely insane and had to be put in a mental hospital. The remaining 6 climbers made a full recovery, and when the police began questioning them, all their answers were the same. They say the 8th climber went to find help and never came back. Then the police went to the mental hospital to talk to the 7th climber, just to see if he knew something that the rest of them didn't. But when they tried to talk to him, all he did was bang his head on the wall and repeat, 8888. What happened to the missing 8th climber? And what drove the 7th climber to insanity? Can you solve this mystery?
It's what she finds in the kitchen that's really scary. In the early 90s, a young girl was sleeping in her mom's bed when she suddenly woke up for no reason. She looked at her door and she saw her very affectionate cat kind of meowing down the hall as if someone was coming up to pet it, but she was next to her mom and they were the only ones in the house. The girl shakes her mom awake and points to the cat just as a man is walking past the door and disappears into the room across the hall. Before the man could come back out and find them, they both jump out the window, run across the street, and call the police. When the police arrived, the guy is nowhere to be found, but they do discover that the front door was unlocked, so that had to be the way he got in and out. But the mother swears up and down that she locked that door before she went to bed. A week later, the mother's cleaning their kitchen and she opens up the water heater closet where she finds this notebook that inside is their names and pictures of them in it, along with a pair of surgical gloves. Which means someone had snuck in at some point, was living in that closet spying on them, and then walking around their house at night.
Never play this game with your friends. Once there was a group of girls who heard about the game Baby Blue. They didn't believe in it but thought they could scare their friend Laura. So they sent Laura into a bathroom by herself. She turned off the lights, closed the door, and put her arms out as if to hold a baby. Then started chanting Baby Blue 13 times. What happened next cannot be explained. Laura felt a heavy weight in her arms. Then she felt the weight in her arms scratching her. She was terrified and didn't know what to do. She wanted to drop it, but she was afraid of what might happen if she did, so she froze, and the weight grew heavier and heavier. Suddenly, she saw a woman in the bathroom mirror with a twisted look on her face. She screamed in terror. When her friends heard her scream, they tried to open the door, but it was locked. When they finally opened the door, they found Laura on the floor. Her eyes had been scratched out. They tried to move her body, but they couldn't, because something large and invisible was pinning her to the ground. This is why you should never let someone borrow your phone charger. Once there was a young woman named Betty who was home alone when she heard a knock at her door. She opened it and saw a young man standing there. He said his car broke down and his phone battery ran out, so he needed to borrow a charger. Wanting to help, Betty let him in and made him tea while his phone charged. This would be a devastating mistake because soon things started getting suspicious. They were chatting on the couch when the man brought up that he recently got into filmmaking and it was his dream to make his own movie. No special effects, no camera tricks, he wanted to make everything seem real. But he didn't want to make any kind of movie. He wanted to make his own horror movie. Betty started feeling uncomfortable, so she hinted that she wanted to go to bed soon. Then, as she stood up from the couch, she noticed something she didn't see before. And this changed everything. Underneath the man's jacket was a glowing red light, the red light of a camera that was recording.
am I the asshole for getting upset every time my girlfriend goes out with her friends? I'm 19 and my girlfriend's 18. We've been dating for about 10 months now. We have been separated for a little while now, since my parents decided to move across the country, and I've been all by myself for about 5 months now. Being alone has really gotten to me. I'm so depressed and I miss being able to do anything with my friends. Seeing people go out and have fun just makes me feel so much worse. The worst part of it is she hangs out with friends. I really want her to have a great summer and have a good time with her friends, even though it kills me every time. I told her how I feel about her hanging out with her friends, and I try to hide my emotions when I feel bad so I don't make her upset, but it's hard. Today I was talking to her and she was telling me about her night, and I sounded kind of uninterested to her. She got really upset and told me I was in the wrong for being upset that she's hanging out with friends, and I told her I want her to. I started crying on the phone and she told me that I needed to be more mature about my emotions, but I don't know what to think. I of course want her to hang out with friends, and I don't want her to feel bad. I just don't like seeing her have fun when I feel trapped at home. So am I the asshole here? Am I the asshole for ignoring my mother's boyfriend? A couple of weeks ago, I was eating and then my mom's boyfriend came in and started looking at me and my food. He proceeded to say that it is very unhealthy and I should start to eat better. It obviously bothered me, but I left things as they were until a couple of days later, he did it again. Same words and all. He would come into the kitchen whenever and he told me he was going to start picking out my food and what I eat, and if he doesn't, then I cannot eat. Or I'd have to wait until he gets home to do so. And then it became a regular thing and eventually turned into an eating disorder. He knew that it bothered me and still continuously did it. I don't know how to talk to my mom as she usually takes his side on everything and doesn't care to talk to him about it. So, am I the asshole for ignoring my mother's boyfriend while I live under their roof? And remember, if you guys want your story told, please submit them through my Instagram DM. Thanks.
Imagine sending your children off to Girl Scout camp only for it to be the last time you see them alive. In June of 1997, 3 families sent their daughters Lori Farmer, 8, Michelle Gousset, 9, and Denise Milner, 10, off to Camp Scott Girl Scout camp in Locust Grove, Oklahoma. Doris Denise Milner had told her mother earlier that day before she boarded the bus that she didn't want to go, but her mother told her everything would be fine and if she didn't feel well when she got there, then to give them a call and they'd pick her up. Sadly, Doris Milner never got to make any calls to her mother after that day. That night, the 3 girls went to sleep in their tents and a thunderstorm rolled into the early hours of the next morning. The tents were fanned out around the counselors' quarters in order to keep an eye on the girls. However, the tent that Farmer, Gousset, and Milner were in was the farthest and hardest to see. A counselor named Carlo Willite heard a guttural moan sound coming from the main road and went to investigate, but ended up assuming that it was an animal from the main road and returned to bed. The next morning at 6 a.m., she made a grisly discovery on her way to the showers. She discovered the bodies of the 3 girls on the side of the trail in their sleeping bags nearly 150 yards from their tent. When police arrived, they found the girls' tent covered in blood. These 3 young, innocent girls had been sexually assaulted and murdered in gruesome ways. As they investigated the events of that night, they found out the strange noises that several other campers heard throughout the night. Around 1:30 a.m., multiple people heard moaning noises, which is around the same time that Willite heard it and went to investigate but couldn't find the source. Approximately 30 minutes later, a camper in Tent 7 was awoken by someone with a flashlight opening the flaps of the tent. Around 3 in the morning, another girl heard a scream coming from where Tent 8 was located, which is the tent that the girls were staying in. At the same time, another camper heard a scream followed by someone crying, "Mama, Mama!" Unsure what to do, both girls went back to sleep. Throughout the 400-acre campsite, they found duct tape, rope, a flashlight, and women's eyeglasses in tent number 8. The flashlight had newspaper stuffed inside to keep the batteries from rattling and duct tape over the lens to dull the light. The duct tape and rope matched the kind that was used on the 3 girls. In a nearby cave, police found evidence that someone had been living inside. The newspapers inside matched the issue that was inside the flashlight. If that wasn't enough evidence, the words, "The killer was here, bye-bye fools, 77-6-17 were written on the cave wall. Police were hoping that all of this evidence would lead them to the killer. Crime Fanatic Friday Part 2, The Girl Scout Murders. On June 13, 1977, the bodies of 3 young girls attending Girl Scout camp in Locust Grove, Oklahoma is found stuffed in their sleeping bags along the trail. Police find an overwhelming amount of evidence that points to a 33-year-old man named Gene Leroy Hart. He had been sentenced to life in prison years earlier for kidnapping and sexually assaulting 2 pregnant women. However, he had escaped from jail and believed to still be in the area when the murders took place. Following a 10-month search, a tip led police to a cabin in Cherokee County, 45 miles away from Camp Scott, where they arrested Hart. Remembering that Hart had tried on the eyeglasses of the 2 Tulsa women he assaulted in 1966, and remembering the eyeglasses that were stolen and discarded from the tents at Camp Scott, it was noticed by all of the arresting officers that Hart was wearing women's glasses upon his arrest. A trial took place on March 19, 1979, but the jury found him not guilty and acquitted him. However, he did return to prison for his original crimes, where he died of a heart attack on June 4, 1979, at the age of 35. The case went cold until DNA testing became more advanced. In the 1980s, a decade after Hart's death, a DNA test carried out on case evidence showed 3 of the 5 probes matched Hart's DNA. In 2008, there was a breakthrough when DNA tests were conducted on a pillowcase. Evidence appeared to show a partial female DNA profile. Although the experts confirmed the DNA didn't belong to 2 of the victims, they couldn't exclude the possibility of it belonging to the 3rd victim. However, many people, including Lori Farmer's mother, believe that there was a female present during the murders. Although a lot of evidence points towards Hart, none of it's 100% conclusive and the case remains unsolved. Camp Scott was shut down after the murders and never reopened. The girls' parents became advocates for victims and their families. Michelle Gousset's father established the Victims' Bill of Rights in Oklahoma and the Oklahoma Victims' Compensation Board. This bill keeps victims and families involved in every step of the legal process. Lori Farmer's mother founded the Oklahoma chapter of Parents of Murdered Children. This organization is dedicated to providing assistance and support to families of homicide victims. I'm 17 and teach gymnastics to young kids usually between the ages of 2 to 10. I regularly teach 19 classes a week, sometimes more. One of my regular classes has a girl with a stammer in it. Let's call her Jane. Jane is around 8 years old and has a stammer since I started coaching her almost a year ago. She used to be really quiet and hated talking, but as she's gotten used to the class and has become more confident, she talks more. One day, around 5 to 6 months into teaching her, I'm doing the register whilst my coworker is running a warm-up. While I'm doing this, I'm humming Shake It Off by Taylor Swift, which had just been played minutes earlier. Jane comes up to ask me a question and stops dead in her tracks, asking if that's Taylor Swift. Turns out, she loves Taylor's music and all of a sudden bursts into song. This takes me by surprise. A girl who wouldn't even speak to me a couple months ago is now singing at the top of her lungs. I feel a small sense of pride as she's become so much more confident in herself. For the rest of the lesson, I let her sing quietly as long as she joins in. The next week, however, she arrives singing very loudly and repeatedly stops my lesson to sing, not only stopping her class but also her peers. Multiple times I asked the group as a whole to be quiet in hopes that she would quiet down and stop annoying her peers and me. After 45 minutes, the other kids were frustrated at the constant singing and lack of respect for them as they had politely asked her multiple times to stop and she ignored them. I said the group doing an activity and then took her aside. I explained that there were other children in classes going on and she was disturbing them by being a bit loud and asked her to stop singing so loudly and maybe raise her voice as some of the other children prefer the quiet. I made sure to be especially understanding and kind with her as I know how much she struggles with things like this. She said okay and then went to join in. She didn't speak to anyone, including me, for the rest of the lesson, and at home time just got her shoes and left. I do feel bad for asking her to be quiet as her singing took a lot of confidence and she may be embarrassed now, but the other classes were going on and the other children were suffering because of it, so I do feel slightly justified. Am I the asshole for telling a girl with a stammer to be quiet?
I met Asa for rejecting a proposal from my boyfriend of 3 months. I started dating my boyfriend about 3 months ago. We met on a dating app, so I obviously was not friends with him beforehand. The past 3 months have been really good. He's super nice, treats me really well, and I'm really enjoying the relationship. Well, Out of nowhere, we go somewhere fancy and he proposes. I'm shocked by this because we barely even started saying I love you up until about a month ago. So this is all going very fast. I rejected and then he got super upset, saying that I embarrassed him in front of everyone at the restaurant. I even got a text from his mom saying how I'm not grateful for her son. I don't understand what I did wrong, but now I'm starting to feel really bad. He's been barely talking to me, and every time he does, he just says how disappointed he is and he thought that we were on the same page. Which is crazy because marriage should be like over a year of knowing this person, not 3 months for me. I'm at the asshole for being upset that my girlfriend did not visit me when I was in the ICU. In April, I went to the ICU 3 times in 3 weeks. I have shunts in my head as well, which is basically like a drain that drains spinal fluid and prevents a whole bunch of fluid from putting pressure on my head. It basically makes my life pure hell. I got one at 2, and then I had to get another one at 15. And I know that I'd have to get another one sometimes in my 20s. I'm 23, and I had to go get it fixed. And so I had to go to the ICU to do that. During my second visit, I went in to get it fixed. It didn't work, so I had to go in the third time, put a new one in, and just tweak it a bit. Anyways, 3 weeks in a hospital bed with a tube in my skull. I got visited by extended family that had to fly in, but my girlfriend only called and texted. It hurted me. I thought this person I dated for 3 years, who I love, can't even swing by for an hour. But it was time to go see people in Wisconsin. When I told her I was hurt that she didn't visit, she defended it with this. I was scared, I didn't want to see tubes everywhere, and I thought I'd lose you. You told me it was going to be fine, and I checked up on you daily. She said I'm an asshole for bringing this up instead of choosing to celebrate that I'm fine. So I'm just wondering, am I actually the asshole for bringing this up and being hurt by this? Emma the asshole for calling out someone who slept with our boss. She was a coworker, and she has never been really nice. She's always trying to get ahead and get that next promotion. Overall, just a really mean, evil person. There's been many occasions where she's gotten me in trouble for very little stuff that she'll blow out of proportion, along with trying to just knock everyone down. She's also really pretty and a huge flirt. I recently saw her outside of work, and she didn't even recognize me or see me, and I overheard her talking to one of her friends about how she's about to get a new promotion. She said that she slept with our boss and that now it's promised. I was really shocked, and I try not to laugh when I heard this because it's something that just sounded like she would do. Anyways, in the next couple days, lo and behold, she was promoted. I went to the person above my boss and just kind of told him everything. He investigated it and saw emails confirming what I saw. Oh, was I the asshole?